Welcome to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education meeting, Truth and Taxation meeting, excuse me. I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:50 PM. Lauren, can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Ann Hill.
Here.
Carrie Steinbach. Here. Lauren Hirsch. Here. Laura Breakstone. Here. Richard Driver.
Here.
Tim Penich.
Here.
Thank you. We are all here and accounted for. We'll turn it over to Mr. Khan.
As we learned at the last meeting, a truth and taxation hearing is required if you're levying taxes that are more than 105%, more than the previous year. That is not the case this year. However, for transparency to the community, every year we do a truth and taxation hearing, whether it's required or not. Quick agenda, I'll talk through the tax levy parameters, go through our 5-year projections, and then give you the recommendation for the 2024 levy. As a quick recap, the district is under PTEL, which is the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law, which limits the ability of the district to increase taxes. In graphic form, just really quick, the aggregate extension base is the prior year's extension in this case. So what we billed to the taxpayers last year, the law allows us to grow that at CPI to keep the real value of our taxes the same. And then we add the taxes on any property, and that gets us to the current extension for this year. The CPI that is used is the 12-month CPI from December of 2022 to 2023, and that was 3.4%. So that was a year ago. And then just as a reference, in the prior year, we used 6.5%. However, the law caps on an increase of 5%. This year's 12-month CPI through November is 2.7%. So inflation is coming down. In my long-term projections, I've actually used 2.5%, so it's a little bit higher because this projected. And then the existing property values are expected to go up by over 10% this year. And last year, for reference, it was about 6%. The way that the township changes property values. So if you look at the final multiplier last year, it's really not as telling because it was a quadrennial reassessment year. So the multiplier didn't really do much. They just reassessed every piece of property. This year, in lieu of that, they look at the prior 3 years of sales and adjust the, set the multiplier so that the average level of assessment is equal to 1/3 of the market value. So this year's multiplier is 8.5%, and then they look at some outliers and make some adjustments, so that gets us up to the 10.6%. So you can kind of tell directionally how close your property value increase is going to be based on that multiplier for the different townships. New property is important to the district because we apply the tax rate to new property, so that is all incremental revenue for the district. The estimate for new property for this next year from January 1st, 2024 is $1.7 million. Last year was also $1.7 million, so it's been flat to last year, but it is a little bit lower than historical averages. And projecting out forward in my 5-year projections, I've estimated or projected 1.5 million, so a little bit conservative. In my 5-year projections, I'm assuming we will levy up to the PTEL cap every year. I'm projecting the cost of this 5-year collective bargaining agreement. And we're going to continue the additional FTE for release time and enrichment. I've predicted moderate inflation and interest rates, so 2.2% on CPI in the out years after next year, 2.5%. And then interest rates coming down from where the historic highs that we've seen recently. Increasing health insurance at average rates. We are rebidding some of our purchase service contracts. We'll be looking at the custodial contract tonight, and then we're going to be doing our transportation contract in the spring, and that is a big source of expense for the district. And then just assuming a maintenance level of capital expenditures going forward. This is what our 5-year projections look like. The blue bars are the revenue, the red bars are the expenditures. These are operating funds only, and the black line is our fund balance. So you can see that in the near term, next year and the year after, we're holding pretty steady, which is good. Those 2 years are the most have the least amount of uncertainty in them. We know fairly well what to project. Once you get into the out years, 3 to 5 years, the data is not as good. It's further out. So there's more uncertainty. There's also some conservatism built in, as I said, that kind of compounds over time. So the shape of this graph is kind of to be expected. We see this in a lot of long-term projections in schools, especially because our salaries are tied to our collective bargaining agreement, and they are increasing faster than CPI. And CPI limits our ability to raise revenue. So because most of our expenses are salaries, you see those going up faster than the revenues, and you kind of see the downward slope. However, we do balance the budget every year. Look for ways to save money, cost savings, or we get more new property than we expect. There's a lot of things that can happen, but on a year-by-year basis, we intervene and we balance the budget. So I'm not super concerned about having the shape of this curve look like it does. There's part of the school code, they've passed a few laws that require me to present our cash and investment balance at this meeting publicly. So as of June 30th, our total cash and investment balance was $19.8 million. 17.7 of that is operating. And then if you look at our expenditure to fund balance ratio, it is about 1. And so this is actually not fund balance. This is our cash reserve balance. So cash and investments at the end of the fiscal year for the operating funds that are prescribed. This is, there's a law called the Miller Rule, where if in general, any fund has more than 2.5 times your previous 3 years of expenditures in cash and reserves at the end of the year, then people can object to their taxes. So the State Board of Education is sort of doing this for all the funds. And really the purpose of this is to prevent school districts from building a lot of excess cash. Our cash balance looks high at the end of the year. This would suggest we have a 90% fund balance ratio. But remember that we defer half of our September collections and our June collections to the following year. So we collect half of our property taxes in June, but we don't use them in that fiscal year. We save them and use them for operating the following year. So really you should be pulling that out. If you look at our fund balance, it's about 40% of our operating expenditures. In truth, what we call fund balance, and that's in line with board policy. So my recommendation is to increase the levy at 3.4%, which is the CPI. What that means is that we would increase our operating taxes on existing property owners by 3.4%. We'll get another 0.2% in new property. And then I'm adding another 0.1% in rounding, just asking for a little bit more to make sure that we get all of that new property, which gives us a total of $19 million that we would levy, which gives an operating tax rate of $2.4 per $100 of value of property. And our tax rate is going down by 6% because the tax rate is the way that we allocate the amount of money we're asking for the different properties. And so we're only asking for a 3% increase in taxes, but our property values are going up by 10%. And so it's amount of money divided by the property value. So the denominator is going up a lot faster than the numerator, and our tax rate is going down. So even though property values are going up 10%, that doesn't mean taxes are going up 10%. Taxes are going up by CPI, so the tax rate goes down to compensate. Our debt service extension is only going up. It's basically pretty flat, which dilutes our overall increase down to about 3.3%. And again, our tax rate in total is going up. So that's what it'll look like for next year, and that's the recommendation that will be brought for approval for a meeting. If there's any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure I understand what you were saying. So if we go back to those 5-year projections with the red and the blue line, it looks like in a couple of years, we will be dipping below what we set board policy as fund balance that we need to hold,
Correct.
right? But what you're saying is that we don't need to panic about this graph right now because the reason you're seeing that dip is that there's more uncertainty 2+ years out and that your projections are conservative.
That's
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so closer that we get to the 27, 28 year, 28, 29 year, we'll have better projections and a better idea of what
Right.
we actually
As,
need to
as we
spend.
kind of move out, then the years 3 to 5 become years 1 and 2, and then we know a lot more, with a lot more certainty what our CPI is going to be or what our revenue is going to be, and we can adjust our expenses accordingly. This just assumes everything stays the same and we just set it up and let it run, and we don't do anything to make any changes.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So that still is concerning to me to see it dipping below the line. I mean, should we be thinking of, or at least have the attitude of trying to, trying to add to this year, especially as we're budgeting next year and the next 2 years, adding to that, our reserve fund a little bit each year so that when we do get 3 or 4 years out, we're not facing a potential shock.
I would say that if in any given year we cannot balance the budget, that's when I would start worrying. It is always my goal to add a little bit to reserves, even when I recommend a balanced budget. I don't want to cut it close enough that to risk not having our revenues exceed our expenditures. So in my balanced budget, there tends to be some conservatism built in, and even though I'm budgeting a zero change in fund balance, at the end of the year, we may see a couple $100,000 of favorability, and then that will compound into the future. I will admit this year, I don't really have that level of conservatism in my budget, because I wasn't able to do it, given the collective bargaining agreement, but as I said, it's always my goal to balance the budget, and it's always my objective to add to the fund balance.
And well, just like, because I know, it's, CPI is not going to be jumping around a lot like it has the last couple of years, most likely. Same with housing values. So I wondered if if it's worth doing some sensitivity analysis with some fairly narrow constraints and just see, because I'm not sure your assumptions are all that. And I think they're pretty good. I mean, I don't think they're like way down extra conservative or certainly not extra liberal. I mean, I think they're pretty good, pretty close to the middle. But maybe look and see what happens if inflation does go up or stays flat, housing values go down. What kind of pressures are we gonna be faced with, 2 years out?
Yeah, I mean, I typically do a sensitivity analysis, and it is a model that's very flexible, so if there are different assumptions that we want to test, we can do that.
Yeah, you've got I mean, this is a lot of work. I appreciate all of it.
3 years out, I would say I wouldn't do anything differently right now. In next year's budgeting, obviously we'll look at that, but,
Perhaps we could, I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
sorry.
I'm done.
Perhaps, yes, perhaps we could add something like this to an agenda in the future if we want to, as a board, understand more of like the sensitivity model or that type of thing and have a conversation about it. I think it'd be a great thing to add to a future agenda, but for purposes of our truth and taxation hearing meeting here tonight, we got your recommendation and the information that I think we need. Does that sound good,
I
everyone?
mean, I kind of feel as a board member, we shouldn't just say, oh, that looks okay, and we'll just rely on, that our assumptions may be a little too conservative and maybe look at it a little deeper.
I agree. I just think we should do it, we should add it as an agenda item and have a real conversation about it.
And I do just want to reassure, as an administrative team, we're consistently looking for ways that we can be more efficient, continue to get the same results, to continue to support our staff in the same way that we're supporting them. And there's lots of different ways that we look at doing that, even throughout the year. We're adjusting throughout the year. So Jay brings us regular updates on certain things that we're trying to adjust for. And then it's our job to work with staff to ensure that we can make those adjustments and keep our budget in line. throughout the year and then into the future when we're looking at staffing and other things that have a big impact on that, 2 to 3 year projection. So we can definitely add it in the future and have a bigger discussion.
But I guess especially in context of the budget.
Exactly.
I love that graph, by the way. That is so.
And for that,
It makes a really good graph.
any consolation, if I look at the last 3 to 4 years of five-year projections, they all tend to have good shape. This is not something that's new this year and I'm concerned about.
Now, that's the kind of thing you need to be able to look at and you can just look at that and understand exactly what the situation is. Very useful.
Any other questions, BJ? Individual comment? Yes. Okay, so at this point in the meeting, we do welcome public comment. Is anyone here in the back to make a comment on the truth and taxation hearing?
Okay, no,
Kids?
Mr. Khan's a good teacher. He can help you understand all.
All right, not seeing any hands, then we will move on. And that is the end of our truth and taxation hearing. So can I have a motion to adjourn the December 17, 2024 truth and taxation hearing at 7:07 PM?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Oh, okay. Welcome, everybody, to the regular Board of Education meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:07 PM. Lauren, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Carrie Steinbach. Here. Lauren Hirsch. Here. Ann Hill.
Here.
Laura Breakstone. Here. Tim Penich.
Here.
Richard Driver.
Here.
All right, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Laura Breakstone tonight is going to read our mission, vision, and motto. You need a copy of it, Laura?
No, I've got it. Our mission is to ensure academic achievement and personal growth for all students through innovative and engaging educational opportunities. Our vision is an inclusive community of motivated learners who are inspired to change the world through exploration and collaboration. Our motto is excellence in education, enthusiasm for life, every student, every day.
Thank you. We have another opportunity for public comment now, if anyone is here to make a specific public comment. Not seeing any hands, we will move on. And looks like Mr. Blackmer, we have a LBMS student video update.
Right, so you may recall last month, Kelly Bay provided you with a slick video board update, setting a very high bar. Thank you, Kelly Bay. It's my turn. So what I've done is gone through and took a look back at the year so far. We're not quite halfway into our middle school year, and not all of the wonderful things that we do at Lake Bluff Middle School have been captured on film. However, we do have a significant number of things that I wanted to display for you here tonight. A little over 4 minutes worth, and I'll just go ahead and hit play. All right, good morning, everybody. Hello. What are we working on? Utilizing library during lunchtime, is that right? One more time, why we're doing this? What is it, what is it again? There we go, thank you.
Is the definition of rebellion.
The others, I would want to be.
Nice job. Some of our future students maybe got a little bit of sneak peek tonight, so hopefully they're excited. All right, good. Thank you very much. And any questions you have for me?
That was fantastic. That made me want to go to LBMS. All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Buff.
Thank you.
So we do have addition of discussion items. Any board members have a topic they would like to bring forward to have discussed at a future meeting? Perhaps, Mr. Driver?
Oh,
Do you want to add anything to a future meeting?
just as we discussed earlier,
All right.
just checking and seeing how, different scenarios as to what the future could look like 2 or 3 years down the road. See what kind of pressure we might be under.
For budgeting purposes. Yep.
And Jay, if you have like old reports that show the 3 to 5 years, so we can see how it looks similar, if you have them.
Yep.
Easily accessible from old meetings.
Anything else? Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports, no PTO or Alliance report tonight. I do not have a report myself either. Dr. Lally, do you?
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to mention was that I had Lake Forest, districts 115 and 67 reached out. They typically do some student focus groups with board members and asked if we would like to participate in those focus groups this year. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. I accepted the invitation. I thought it would be a great idea for us to do it. If you would like to participate as a board member, please let me know. But I think it goes hand in hand well with our ninth grade data, the survey that we send out. And then we can maybe take that with some focus group information and report back on how our kids are doing once they're done here in 65.
That's a great idea.
It'll be in February. Yes, thanks for that.
Wonderful. Well, we'll definitely get some participation in that. Okay, so let's begin our discussions and presentations for the evening. And first up is the enrichment team update. I'm sitting for it. We're very excited to hear about this.
I'm not going to speak very much because we have plenty of people to present, but we have Kate Sapienza and Kelly Sheridan, two of our enrichment team leaders that are going to introduce a little bit about what they've been doing this fall and also with some support from some of our fifth graders. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having us. As Jackie said, I'm Kate Sapienza. Thanks for having us tonight, and we are going to give you an update on enrichment and how that's been going so far, what we've been up to. Here we go. I'm Kelly Sheridan, as just mentioned. You can go to the next slide. So our school-wide enrichment program was implemented at the beginning of this year. It reaches all K-5 students. So far, we've implemented through grades 1 through 5, and kindergarten is going to begin in January. So our grade level updates that we have for you here are aligned with our school-wide enrichment implementation. So this is 60 to 90-minute blocks of either social studies or science teaching. Included in that are life science, physical science, and social studies. So in grades K through 5, each one of those grade levels is getting 60 to 90 minutes a week of either science or social studies. Highlighted under each grade level in each of those rows are the current units that we're in. So right now, first grade is learning about light and shadows. Second grade is learning about solids and liquids. Third grade is in a motion and matter unit. Fourth grade is in an energy unit, and then fifth grade is actually in a social studies unit where they are doing a document-based questioning technique related to civics. So they are learning about the freedom of the press. On the side, you'll see some awesome pictures of our, looks like fourth grade and third grade students and some of the work that they did in their first units. And then outside of the enrichment block, we also support students in small groups for math and English language arts. And so in math, within our small groups, we're supporting students with some of our curriculum. We already have this tied to Bridges for the concept quests, which are different adventures that our kids can do that are problem-solving adventures. There's math games and strategy groups as well as supporting in-class lessons. And then for ELA, we've got book clubs going on. We're doing guided reading and strategy groups as well as supporting with reading and writing conferences in the classroom. And then we have some lunch and learn opportunities too that you'll get to hear one of the products from our most recent lunch and learn about the native garden.
One of the things that's really important to us as a team is connecting with families and communicating with them about the different things that students are doing. The main way that we've been doing that this year is through an application called Seesaw. It allows students to post works, parents to see that work and comment on it, and then teachers to also comment and connect with students in the work that they post. So they can show an experiment that they did, they can do a quick check-in, and then there's also a feature that allows us to post different pictures and things that students are doing. We also have newsletters that are sent out through School Messenger and are also posted in Seesaw for parents. You can connect with us on Instagram if you'd like some more frequent updates about what we're doing. Our Instagram is listed there. And then the other thing that's important for all of the enrichment team members, I think, is recognizing students individually. So pause postcards have been sent home and sent out to students that are really doing a great job welcoming challenges and being engaged during enrichment block times.
Okay, so now we have a group of fifth graders here that have been working on a presentation for you for the Native Garden Project. We have Cole Nito, Celia Sello, Jenna Fisher, Juju Cezanne, Marilyn Blum, and Rainey Cunningham. So here's our little introduction to introduce you about what the project was about. And how it was started. So the project was about bringing a native garden to LVES and helping the students learn about what we can do to help the native prairie ecosystem that we have in Illinois. We started with a Zoom meeting with Urban Rivers to learn about our ecosystem and how to help. And then after that, we went on a tour of our school, learn about the native plants that we have from the Lake Forest Openlands. And students from our grade, we all choose the team based on our strengths. One of the teams that you're going to hear about next. So this is about the research team, and here are some bullet points about what we did. So we talked about the plants that were good for pollinators. We talked about different structures that could help animals, like for example, bird feeders, hummingbird feeders, and bat boxes. And we also researched information for plant profiles, and now the design team will tell you a little bit about that. So this is the plans of this school. We made plant profiles. Profiles are where we gather information about each plant, and how we organize it is with pictures, words, and other stuff. Like if you can see up on the screen, there is one plant profile that we did. We're on the finance team. We looked up costs and budgets for important items. We know that we're not going to use seeds because they have a less chance of making it through the year. So we're going to use seedlings or stuff that's already grown. We found the area and the perimeter of the plot. We also found the cost of fencing. We communicated with the design team as we just showed you. We are also planning a fundraising team so that we could know what we're needing to know and like how we're gonna find the money. We are also planning to put rain barrels in. We also calculated the amount of soil we needed to fill the plot to make it better for all the plants to grow. And if you see there's the pictures up there, that's what we did. Hello, I'm Jenna Fisher from Marie Cunningham, and we were part of the communications team. We learned how to write emails to communicate our needs for the project. We hope to fundraise with PTO to sell native garden spiritware. We taught other grades about why we are doing the Native Garden Project. We interviewed fifth grade students, and Mrs. TK asked them the hopes for the native garden. And next steps. We are planning to start planting in the early spring. We will get volunteers to help the garden. We are also planning to host the family literacy fundraising event where we are going to read to the younger grades. Here are all the people who helped out. One was that? Any questions?
Well done, you guys. They're learning so much. It's really interesting to hear about. Thank you for sharing that with us. I do have one question. Where are you planting these things? In the courtyard or out front
So
or?
there is when you first walk in, or if you come out from the playground right out here, if you go that way, there is a little teardrop shaped island kind of thing, and it has a maple tree and not much else. So we're trying to turn that into a native garden. We also showed you a picture. It was on Google Earth, and that's from Google Earth, And that's what our design team put up there, and that's all they want. And
Great. Excited to see that.
So you just figured out what plants should go where and why they should go in a certain spot.
yeah,
That's great.
Is there anything surprising when you were doing the planning?
not that much. No, not really. Maybe the cost probably.
The cost of landscaping is always.
For dirt, right?
What was your favorite part of the process?
We probably all have our own favorites. Like with all the ideas that everybody was coming up with. Yeah.
It's fun to brainstorm together too, right? Well, we're really excited to see this take shape. Thank you for sharing it. Good job.
Photo of the,
Yeah.
so you're just at a perfect angle and then I kind of, would you mind going out and just kind of under the
Thank you.
screen?
I got one. No, I can see. Ready? Oh, there, yeah, that's one. Nice job.
Guys, can we take some candy?
Oh,
yeah.
You guys very good.
So we don't.
Don't be shy.
Thanks, parents, for bringing us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yes.
You all are welcome to stay for the meeting, but you certainly don't take it.
And thanks to Kate and Kelly and Sarah and Amanda, you guys.
Thank you for having us. They really, it's been very cool to see all the things that they come up with. They were very excited to share.
It was so good.
It's really great.
Okay, our next update is just as exciting. The 2025-2026 proposed tech plan.
We're gonna start.
Gardens that I'm planning. One thing I haven't, yet.
I know.
I'm excited about it.
So it is crazy. We're thinking about next year and we're already in kind of the final stages of planning for next year and kind of where we want to go with the tech department and tech in general as a district. So a lot of this is just, I touched on this in the fall, kind of my big vision, and now it's just kind of really drilling down to what we want to do and bringing that to life. So one piece of just exciting news that we've gotten since this morning. So we did our reassessment for cyber, as I've kind of talked about with all the changes, all security we made. And we had a impressive change of what, 34%. So we really did a lot as a district. And yeah, so shout out to our team, to the admin. I mean, really the teachers too, as Lisa said last time we talked about this, that's, you know, they've been really not always on board, but understanding that it's necessary for us. And so that's really good for us. And that really puts us much higher than most districts in the area. So it's really good news for us. And we'll keep looking to improve. We have one item of improvement, and that's going to be really tough to do, which is good. So. So as we kind of look into next year, I brought this up a few months ago. We've had some changes, some kind of evolution in how we're dealing with our current internet service provider and also our current network services provider. So the top is kind of where we exist now. And you kind of see we have two internet connections, one with Net56, which is also our network services and cybersecurity provider. And then we also have one from the state. And we are currently paying a pretty high amount for Net56 to give us a partial connection and then also manage and provide us firewalls for the district. And then Illinois ICN is what we call, it's the public network that districts get for free for E-rate. They provide that to really any public school district. So as we look towards next year and kind of our changes, our contract with Net56 is expiring with our network connection and the firewalls. So we're in the position where we either had to continue working with them or look to purchase our own firewalls and have them set up. And so we're kind of looking at making this transition to do a more self-sufficient internet connection. That means cutting them out of the picture with internet. We haven't been overly thrilled with kind of what they've done for us, so we're looking at moving away from them, bringing a second internet connection into the district. So we would have two separate internet connections, one at elementary, one at middle school, and then they would kind of feed off of each other. So part of the firewall purchase would be, we would have a backup firewall at each building that would allow, if one of the internet connections goes down, it would just kind of fail over to the other building. And so by doing that, we would save roughly $1,900 a month in not running or leasing firewalls from Net56, and then also having them provide us an internet connection. So that's kind of where we're looking to go. The big part for us is purchasing those firewalls and getting them set up and configured for this new setup. There's a lot of back-end work that a company has to do to get all that set up for us. With that said, we're also looking to potentially change our network service provider. Again, we've had Net56 for about 2.5 years now, and there's just been a lot of things that have not really worked for us in the amount that we're paying, and just not really giving us what we want service-wise. So we've kind of explored some other avenues. We found a company that has come recommended from other districts that are using them called Sentinel. And so working with Net56, they have agreed to potentially terminate we have another contract with them for network services and cyber, and they're agreeing to line that up with their internet connection and kind of terminate everything at the same time, which would leave us free to kind of move on in our own direction. With Sentinel, just what we've seen from them already, I've provided you guys the packets for cybersecurity, for network services. They seem to be much more thorough in how they're providing us the service, and then also kind of teaming up with us and giving us more visibility into what's going on in our network. Right now, we don't really have that visibility with Net56. They don't necessarily give us the information we ask for. Projects are taking much longer than they should. So just kind of a lot of things are leading us to look in this different direction, and we feel comfortable with Sentinel communications and all the planning that we've had with them. We would like Sentinel to do the firewall project and then a couple other things paired up with that to get us in a good spot with this new internet connection and get the whole setup done as they become onboarded with us potentially. I know, Dick, you asked about this, just kind of see this in a numbers perspective. So currently that's what we're paying for network services, managed services, cyber security, the software licensing that comes with some of those services. And then as we move to Sentinel, the potential savings that we would have by moving over to them. The one thing that I would note, which I don't see as a bad thing, currently we don't pay for like extenuating work with Net56. They kind of project plan and they will eventually do things. And Sentinel, that would be kind of on a side note. So we would, just like the firewall project, if we have a large project, we would pay for that on the side, which I'm okay with because we don't have a whole ton of projects doing firewalls, and the massive project we're doing is very rare. So I would be okay working with that. I think that would be worth the.
Fine. In your packet, the list of all the bidders is attached. We actually had more bids than we did the prior time. Because this time we did not require a on-site walkthrough. Since we just bid it about a couple months earlier, we didn't require people to come in. So a lot of people just bid because it was easy. Of all of it, so one of our requirements, I think I listed that, we were looking for longevity of contractor in public schools. We wanted somebody who was accustomed to serving public schools because it's a lot different than just community offices, doing garbage cans and offices. Also, we were looking at the stability of their staff, their employee turnover rates, and how financially sound they were, their contact procedures, their training programs and references. And so we evaluated all of the bidders on those criteria, and so RJB was the 7th lowest bid in dollars, but only RJB and GSF had any experience in schools. All the other bidders were very small companies, did not have their financials sound soundness and stability and didn't have any public schools. Only one of them had a reference from a public school, and they were more of a staffing service versus doing all of their cleaning. So it really came down to GSF or RJB, and since we currently have GSF and we declared them not responsible because we didn't feel like they could provide the service based on our experience. So we're going back to RJB, which we're very happy with. They did a very good job for us. They're bringing back the facility manager we had, Henry Ovar, who has a very good working relationship with Andy and with the principals, and is, we know him well, and he's very diligent, very good at his job. And so we are asking to award the bid to RJB. Their total bid was almost just under $380,000. That's about a 5.5% increase over what we're paying this year. So it's not a financial savings, but we do, once we have that in place, we will have 5 one-year options to renew the contracts at the board's discretion for a increase tied to CPI not to exceed 3%. So for the next 5 years, we shouldn't see increases over 3%. That's what we feel. So there's questions?
Are there any, will there be any potential for issues since money wise, they weren't technically the lowest bidder?
No,
Because of the, I guess, what you, sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
The other criteria, yeah.
Thank you, criteria.
Yeah, the criteria are very clear. In fact, when we did some interviews and we were considering the low bid, who was, I don't recall who they were now, EcoClean. And we checked the references and then we called them up, and in doing so found that the one school district that they had, they were not fully, they just provided personnel, but their school district staff was the management of those people. So they're basically just providing employees, kind of like a staffing service. And they even admitted, like, I realize it says in your bid, we want references from 5 public school districts. We didn't have that. We just had one, but I just threw it out and anyway, because, we have the right to waive any of those requirements. So, since they were the low bid, if we thought we could get very good service from them, we were considering them with EcoClean, but it turned out that we didn't want to take the risk of already having had switched once in a year. It was pretty disruptive, so we didn't want to take that risk. So this is something that's very common.
Yeah.
The responsiveness is also a way to disqualify bidders if they don't comply with the bid requirements. And if you ask for a certain insurance level and they don't provide it, then you can say, well, you didn't meet the terms of it. So I don't foresee any.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great. Anything else for Jay on that?
Oh, great job on pulling all that together.
All right, we'll continue with you and the disposition of assets.
We actually are gonna table that until we have this placeholder.
Easy, okay. Next up is 2025-26 school year calendar draft, second read.
Yep, just as a reminder, this is a proposed draft. We worked with our calendar committee that includes staff and administrators. We always align our vacations with the high school district. And we start a little bit later next year on this proposed draft because the high school is also starting later due to construction. So we have our first Institute Day occurring on August 22nd. And then our first day of school, which is an early dismissal on August 27th, which I believe is the same day as the high school.
Yes.
We have a similar situation with parent-teacher conferences in October where it's backed up or front-loaded onto an already a holiday. So we have a nice long break there in October, but only one break. And then our Thanksgiving break looks the same. Our winter break looks the same. And then we continue to have our Institute Day that day after we come back from winter break. We have our February conferences also backing up to President's Day, so another nice long weekend. That worked out well for us this year. We had a lot of parents come, more parents attend parent-teacher conferences when there was a longer break after it, so we felt good about that. And then, spring break at the end of March, and our final day is, June fifth, with our emergency week being the 8th through the 12th.
Looks great. Any questions?
With the last day of school being on a Friday, with emergency days, do you anticipate like similar protocols to what you've used in the
Yeah, we
past?
probably do at least a few traditional emergency days in the beginning and then start to evaluate whether or not we would want to do remote learning. We would really rather not do a remote learning situation. We feel it's better to have kids in school. But we're always kind of considering how those emergency days fall in relation to when we want to start ESY in summer school. So that's kind of how we evaluate those as we move through. But yes, we would probably do at least a few traditional.
Anything else? All right, let's move on to our Triple I debrief. Another successful Triple I conference this fall. Does anyone want to start first, share what they, tokens they took away from the conference?
I always like the keynote speakers. I really like the one on Saturday. He spoke a lot about trust. And I kept typing all the little quotes he kept saying. But some of the ones that stood out to me is, do what's right, even with critiques. Will be criticized as a board or critiqued as a board, but it's important to do what's right. People trust those who stand through adversity. So it's just different little tidbits about just the importance of trust and as a board and for the district. But as always, I feel like Triple I is so, we gain so much knowledge, just being able to go to the different speakers and learn so much that it's just nice to hear from other districts and then also from all these other speakers.
Yeah, and to be in all those kind of like-minded people, you know, discussing issues and whatnot is always interesting. The Saturday morning keynote speaker talking about trust, he was my favorite too. Something I thought that was so interesting that he said is to kind of maintain trust with people, you have to remind them every 14 days of whatever the boundaries are, the rules are, the information is. And I thought that was really, wow, it's really often. It's a lot, but it was just interesting. And you can think about different scenarios in your life where, you know, communication starts to break down or tensions rise or whatever. It's like, oh, well, we haven't reminded so-and-so in the last 14 days about, you know, why do we trust them? I thought that was really interesting.
I was going, no,
Sorry.
well, the one thing that he started off is everything you do is centered around trust, which I thought was really interesting. But one of the meetings or whatever you would call it, that I went to, yeah, was about dual language and our Spanish-speaking students and just a lot of really interesting information about what our district deals with when it comes to our English learners and what other districts have been doing to kind of increase their performance and their, you know, their test scores and things like that. So I learned a lot about that kind of thing, and I was, you know, sent some questions to figure out what we do here and how important it is to help our English learners and what that means to our district. So. That's what I think.
Right. Anybody else?
I agree that the Saturday keynote was very helpful and kind of on that same path. I went to a session about sharing good news, which I know the district's has done a good job of sharing all the things that are happening in our schools, but the different communications directors that presented that talked about how that helps build trust in your community and people see the good things going on in the school and they want to support the schools even when and then when there are difficult times, you have that level of trust with your community. So I thought that was interesting and something I think we're doing a good job doing.
Yeah, I agree. One's favorite part was the saxophone.
Yes, improved it.
I went to a breakout session and it was like a 2.5 hour one, so I was, kind of concentrated on finance on, Friday morning. And I tell you, gave me a lot of perspective. There's school districts that are huge,
Yeah.
so much bigger than us. And we're so fortunate, we got a tax base where, our problems are all pretty relatively small compared to what so many other school districts are facing, especially from the financial side of it.
Yeah.
So
We are very
it was a good perspective. It was a good perspective on it.
I think, just coming out of III, I think we always reflect on what we learned and what we've seen, and it always comes back to perspective. Like why we're doing what we do and what other people in other districts do, and this all is perspective.
Yeah, and how fortunate our district is. Anything else?
I went to the same ESL, though it seemed like it was supposed to be ESL and then it turned into a dual language thing, so it's sort of. But there were a lot of interesting points that they brought up about, you have to focus on how the students do when they exit the program. And that's the real barometer of how the program worked. And that students with IEPs or basically students kind of on either end of the spectrum are where a lot of the focus goes. And so the kids in the middle get lost a little. So, but I had the same reaction about sort of just how lucky our community is, because I think because we're so small, everyone is so plugged into what's happening and very involved.
I know it wasn't a learning session, but I just want to highlight Tim and Carrie for the second year joining me in presenting some of what we've done for safety and security in our district. And we had a full table each round of the 3 rounds. And it's, at first we were disappointed that we didn't get like a main stage situation happening, but both years that we've done this. What's that?
2025.
Yeah, both years that we've done this, it's been really good conversation with really different districts, but also recognizing we're dealing with the same things. And that there are struggles everywhere, especially with student mental health right now and trying to support kids with social emotional learning. Many of in fact, almost all of the participants were interested in hearing kind of how we started a conversation around technology and social media and the book club and kind of the steps we've taken there. So we were asked to share some of that. So I think that's a big celebration. And I think it's important that we put ourselves out there, because that's how we learn, that's how others learn. So if you have other ideas, I'm happy to help develop presentations or those kinds of things for that as well next year.
Yeah, good point. Well done, you guys.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Ideas for next year already.
Yeah.
Well, good. As always, I think it was a really valuable weekend. And to enjoy ourselves as well. So bonus all around. Okay, moving on. It's actually something that came out of III as well, Vision 2030 Board Resolution.
Yeah, so III is a conference that's representative of 3 different Illinois groups and associations. One is the Association of School Administrators, which is the Superintendent Association, the Chief School Business Official Association, and the Illinois Association of School Boards. The IASA group, which is the one that superintendents belong to, has done some visioning in the last 10, 20 years to talk about like big pressing issues in Illinois and put forward a vision of what kind of the leaders of the state want to see in terms of legislative priorities. In Vision 2020, I believe EBF and evidence-based funding came out of that, which has been a big impactful change in our state with regard to equity in terms of how districts are funded. So visioning and putting out legislative priorities is important for our leaders to do. And they give us these resolutions so that when people go to legislators and start to ask for things to change, they can say, here's our vision and here's all the school boards that are with us in the state. So that's why they ask us to approve these resolutions. So I know the superintendents that joined this team from Lake County. They had a lot of great conversation around what the priorities need to be for our students in Illinois in the future. And essentially the resolution that we have before us has 3 areas identified. Future focused learning, which focuses on college and career. So in the 21st century learning model, we were talking about college prep, and now we're actually talking about college and career, and making sure that our students have options that maybe are different than college prep, and that we have lots of different ways for them to explore those options. That we're talking a lot about student safety and well-being, that we're talking about the teacher shortage and looking not only at having enough teachers, but a diverse group of teachers that supports all of the diversity in our student group. And instructional flexibility in terms of local community discretion. And that is something that's important in our communities. Our communities value being able to make decisions that are important and good for us in our community. And so that's in here as well. Shared accountability has to do with reforming the assessment system, so that's the IAR test. We've been talking for a long time about the standards-based assessments that our kids are graded on, the rating system in Illinois, and whether it makes sense for the top 10% of districts and bottom 10% of districts for there not to be a criterion-based way to make that decision. Our state superintendent is putting forward some really interesting ideas about bringing us to a criterion-based system where if we were going to be an exemplary school, it's because we've met certain benchmarks, and it's not because we're better than the majority of other schools on certain measures, because that bar then keeps changing and we have no idea where we're gonna end up if we don't have criteria. So we're very supportive of that kind of rebrand and reforming of that initiative, of those assessments. And then the final one, it has to do with funding again, protecting the evidence-based funding formula and looking at pension reform. We've been talking about pension reform for a very long time, and the state has tried to address this in a few different ways. And we're coming up on kind of like, we're coming up on a deadline. We have some tier 2 employees that are starting to retire, and they're under very different guidelines in terms of their retirement. We anticipate that there's going to be some challenges in the courts with regard to that. And then what we'll have to talk about is where those costs then come from. If we have to address that tier 2 pension somehow as a state, we want people in there lobbying for what's best for school districts and communities and taxpayers. So those are the 3 areas, and I'm bringing it to you. I recommend that we approve the resolution. I think these are good things for the state to be working on, and I think there's good people that are trying to work on them.
You might have already said this, but has there been a previous vision, or is this something?
Yes, there was Vision 2020. I don't know before that, but the 2021 was a really, really big change maker. That was the EBF, the evidence-based funding.
Do they do it just every 10 years? Or whatever you would call it?
So far.
2020 was the first thing.
Yeah, I think they're delayed a little bit during COVID, so I think that now they're,
Like a strategic plan
Yeah.
type thing.
yeah.
I mean, for what it's worth, I agree. I think all of these things are positive. And if it helps, you know, the people who are making these cases to legislature to have these school boards, many school boards have adopted this resolution, then I'm in favor of doing it.
I wish they talked about it more.
Yeah, there was one, so Brent Clark got up and talked, was it Brent that got up and talked about it? Or, yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
I think this one is a little bit, loftier in one sense, but also kind of more specific in another sense. I think there's a lot of work already being done on the assessment side, that is gonna be really interesting, and the changes are already gonna be happening this school year. So when we get our scores back in October, our accountability system is gonna look very different, and our scores are gonna look different. So they're moving along. I think this is memorializing really more than anything what the work is that's already been started in the decade, so.
Great. Anything more on that? Okay, thank you. Then let's move on to our action items for this evening. First is approval of the cyber incident response plan. So can I have a motion to approve the cyber incident response plan as discussed in the November meeting?
Second.
Lauren, can we have a roll call vote?
Laura Brinkstone,
Yes.
Ann Hill,
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach,
Yes.
Richard Driver,
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch, yes, Tim Penich.
Yes.
That motion passes. Custodial bid award approval. May I have a motion to approve the custodial bid award as just presented?
Second.
Actually, asking for discussion, yeah. Is there any more discussion or questions on this?
Thanks, Jay, for laying it out so clearly again.
All right, wonderful. Lauren, can we have a roll call vote?
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch, yes. Ann Hill,
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Richard Driver,
Yes.
Laura Brinkstone, yes.
That motion passes as well. Next up is the tax levy approval. So may I have a motion to approve the tax levy as just presented?
So moved.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion or questions on this? All right, Lauren, can we have a roll call vote?
Lauren Hirsch, yes. Richard Driver,
Yes.
Ann Hill,
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach,
Yes.
Tim Penich,
Yes.
Laura Brinkstone, yes.
Motion passes. 2025-26 school calendar approval. May I have a motion to approve the proposed 2025-2026 school calendar as just presented?
Someone.
Second?
You were seconding, right?
Yeah. I was reading it, but I do second it.
There.
Does anyone want to discuss anything further on the calendar? Lauren, could I have a roll call vote?
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Laura Brinkstone. Yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Ann Hill.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch, yes. Richard Driver.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next up is the destruction of BOE, Board of Education, closed meeting audio recordings from January 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2021. They have a motion to approve the destruction of Board of Education closed meeting audio recordings, January 1, 2024 through June 30, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Does anyone have any discussion on that?
And this is just standard.
Mm-hmm. Good question, yes, it is. We have a roll call vote?
Ann Hill.
Yes.
Laura Brinkstone. Yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
Richard Driver.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch, yes.
That motion passes. Next up is the personnel report. I need to read that. There's just one item this time. It's a resignation by Stephanie Moy, a paraprofessional at LBES, effective December 2nd, 2024. May I have a motion to approve the personnel report for December 17th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Anyone have any questions on this? Laura, can we have a roll call vote?
Laura Brinkstone. Yes. Richard Driver.
Yes.
Ann Hill.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch, yes. Tim Penich.
Yes.
That motion passes. Next up is approval of notice of remedial warning for a third grade classroom teacher. And I need to read this. Where is? Okay, thank you. This one has? Yes. Okay, wonderful. Give me 1 second, guys, to get back into where I need to be. Okay. Board resolution authorizing notice of remedial warning. Whereas the Board of Education of Lake Bluff School District number 65, Lake County, Illinois, has the responsibility to manage and operate the schools of said district. And whereas the Board of Education has the power to dismiss tenured teachers pursuant to sections 5/10, 22.4 and 5/24-12 of the Illinois School Code. And whereas the Board of Education has received information, reports, and recommendations from its administration regarding the conduct of a third grade tenured teacher on contractual continued service status in the district. And whereas the Board of Education finds and determines that the conduct of a third grade teacher in this district has been unsatisfactory and warrants an official notice of remedial warning from the Board of Education. And whereas the Board of Education finds and determines that such information, reports, and recommendations received from the administration sets forth causes, charges, reasons, and defects in the conduct of a third grade teacher, which if not removed, may constitute causes, charges, and reasons warranting the teacher's discharge and dismissal from the teaching staff of this district. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of Lake Bluff School District 65, Lake County, Illinois, as follows. Section 1, that the third grade teacher shall be given a notice of remedial warning. Said notice to be substantially in the form of and for the causes, charges, and reasons set forth in the Exhibit A attached hereto and made a part hereof. Section 2, that said notice enumerates causes, charges, reasons, and defects that this board determines may result in discharge and dismissal of the third grade teacher in the district, if said causes, charges, reasons, and defects are not corrected and remedied. Section 3, that the president and secretary of the Board of Education are hereby authorized and directed to sign and send or cause to be sent to the third grade teacher a copy of said notice of remedial warning by certified mail, return receipt requested. Section 4, that the superintendent or her designee shall also personally deliver a copy of said notice to the third grade teacher via electronic means. Section 5, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon its adoption. Adopted this 17th day of December 2024 by the following roll call vote. So do we need to have any discussion on this or just do a roll call? Does anyone have any questions or any further thoughts? Lauren, could we have a roll call? Vote? Motion. Yes. We do need a motion. May I have a motion to approve the notice of remedial warning for third grade classroom teacher as discussed in closed session?
So move.
I'll second it. Roll call vote.
Tim Penich.
Yes.
Laura Breakstone. Yes. Anne Hill.
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
Richard Driver.
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch, yes.
Motion passes. Consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the following: open session meeting minutes, November 19, 2024 regular Board of Education meeting, treasurer's report, impress report, bills report, P-card report, activity account report. I do need to note that on this particular consent agenda, there are Board of Education members' expenses due to traveling into Chicago for the Triple I conference. Does anyone have any questions on any of these consent agenda items?
Of course.
Should we just say like, does anyone have any questions?
Let's hear them.
Okay, treasurer's report, Jay. I had it here now, I don't see it. So in your, schedule showing, it's the one with, you got total government funds by object. And it seems like a small amount, but I'm not so sure, but it shows this year for supplies that we're spending less than last year by like 40%. $100 and something thousand, $138,000. And that's made up of, looks like primarily, or that reduction looks like primarily from the education spending, the general fund. I doubt much has been reduced from operations, but I don't know. But and they spent like 110,000, so that means almost, the supplies for general fund are like cut in half. Or am I reading I'm not reading it right?
No, that is a year-to-date number, so through November, the first 4 months of the year, we have spent less than the prior year, largely due to technology purchases that Kevin was talking about. So last year, we purchased iPads and teacher devices in the fall prior to November. So there was a significantly large purchase of technology that did not happen this year. We're looking at purchasing our devices in spring for the following year. So that amount is much reduced this year. That's the primary driver. Some smaller drivers are also food service. We've changed our food service program and have less spending on supplies for that program. And then we also have reduced some of our maintenance spending, so cleaning supplies and monitors and electric supplies. I believe we also did like an LED conversion project the first couple months of last year, so some of those costs are not.
Okay, so my concern is just that things that teachers had last year, that they don't have this year. But you're kind of saying that that's really not the case?
I'm saying that's not the case.
Okay.
I'm saying that there were, the primary driver is a technology spend.
Okay. Okay,
The teacher supply budgets.
thanks for clarifying.
Yep.
Okay, so my next question.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so in the last one, the activity account report, just, Martin Brooks and Lauren Associates, what do they do for us?
So this is that Marty and King? So we are part of a consortium, a group of districts. Highland Park 112, Deerfield, Highland Park High School, Vernon Hills 128, or Libertyville 70, so some area districts, unlike Forest, where we've joined together as a group to hire someone to help us facilitate instructional walkthroughs between our districts. So we have kind of come together to see if we can learn from each other. And in that effort, we are training our staff on focused walkthroughs and giving feedback so that we can, each district over the course of the next few years can have professionals from the area come and walk through and give us feedback on how we're doing on strategic questions. So it's brand new this year. This group of districts works together already through True North. And we've tried to do a lot of different collaborative projects to try to learn from each other. And this is a project that mimics a group out east, a tri-district consortium, a tri-state consortium of, I think, over, 75 districts. It's grown over time, where we kind of help each other on our strategic goals. I think I presented on this to you guys last year, so.
Okay, and so this person in this group provided training.
Yep.
For our staff to be able to observe and comment.
And they also facilitate the guided walkthroughs and the feedback sessions of which we can be a part. So this year, Deerfield District 109 and Libertyville District 70 are hosting walkthroughs. And we will be able to participate in the feedback sessions and learn from what they're learning from the group as well. So it's sort of just a way for us to see what other people are doing, learn from them, and then also have them come and see what we're doing and give us feedback on what we're doing.
Okay, and so, is this an ongoing then expense that we have with these people?
At this point, no, this is kind of the initial expense. We don't know what the ongoing expenses are because we're also trying to recruit more districts to come.
Right.
We've had meetings with a few other districts in the area.
Okay,
What's hard is when we get together as job-alike groups, superintendents talk, directors of special ed talk, directors of curriculum talk, but we don't always get to see and help each other with what's actually happening in our buildings. And so we see this as a really helpful opportunity for that. Ongoing costs I would bring to you each year, so that we can determine if we still want to be a part of that group.
and who participates in the walkthroughs for us? You know?
So what we do is each district can hire staff member or can bring on staff members to be trained that they would like to be going out, learning, and also providing feedback. So it's kind of like, your teachers that you think have some natural leadership ability because they need to be able to provide feedback to other teachers, but also the ones that might be looking for some ideas to bring back from other districts.
So
So-
some teachers go as well as
Yes.
that.
Yep, in fact, we had, one principal and 2 teachers, I think, trained.
Okay, good. Okay, so one last one, I don't know where this.
Did I interrupt a second on that? Just, we agreed to be the fiduciary for the group, so that is the reason that it's written out of the activity account. That is a fiduciary account, so what that means is it's not all our money. All the other rather than have the consultants bill 7 districts, all the districts are sending us money. It's being accounted for and kept in the fiduciary account, and then we pay one invoice. So
that's not all for our.
that's not all for us. So 1/7 of that total amount is
Thanks for
an
that.
expense for Lake Bluff, and the other 6/7 of it, it's from other districts.
Okay, I appreciate it.
And so we've got, I think everyone's contributing $10,000 and we're all pooling it in this and then paying out of that pot. So, this was kind of a late addition, so it didn't make my, cover letter of the treasury report, but this is also, and our portion is also grant funded coming out of the general.
Okay, thank you. So one other one, I think this is on the large bill coming up. And you told me a little bit about what ECRA does for us. But I think it was like, and going from memory, like 19,000 for a second installment or something. What's the total amount that we pay now? Is there only like 2 installments? Or is there more? I'm sorry?
There's 2 installments.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, so is that a software program or is that a?
So, sort of. So ECRA is a data warehouse essentially and a research consulting group. So we've been, as a district, working with them, I think, for a very long time. I think our partnership's been going in here probably over 10 years, 15 years. As a group, ECRA has developed a value-added way of looking at data to assess whether or not students are gaining more than predicted. So they take and house all of our data from IAR and MAP tests and Ames web tests, and then they provide us with reports on how well students are doing from year to year over time. They also provide us benchmarks against other districts like us. We can pull reports and query reports, and we can ask for specialty reports. So for example, the report that I give the board on our strategic goals that takes into account 4 different assessments, ECRA is the one that's organizing and putting that report together for us. Additionally, they provide us the data for the student achievement portion, student achievement and growth portion of the teacher evaluations. That had to be negotiated with our joint committee, our para committee, which is the Performance Evaluation and Review Act. So our teachers and admin, all teachers and all districts had to have a group come together and negotiate how student performance was going to be included in teacher evaluation systems. And part of that negotiation had to do with how we were going to aggregate that data, who was going to bring it to present, and then how that was going to be included. When that Reform Act came down, this district had a joint committee come together and say, this is how we want to organize data to inform the 30% of the teacher evaluation system. And that's what they agreed on.
And that went into effect when?
Yeah, 2010,
Oh,
somewhere around then.
okay.
So there's other ways that the state approves of you doing that. Some of them are cumbersome than others. ECRA's solution provides a pretty seamless report in a structure that everyone understands. And so we've been doing it for quite some time. We have talked about whether or not we can move to a different model. And that's something that we're still looking at. Kevin's brought some ideas. We've looked at other districts. But we have to then work with the teachers to make sure that whatever reports we use to include in their teacher evaluations, that they're okay with that. And that would have to be negotiated.
So we can ask for an individual student or a group of students?
Yeah, so their platform allows us to track students in groups that we set up. So we can set up a group, say, we want to track how an intervention is going. We can put students into groups, so their data is already there. And then they can aggregate, how is that intervention working for that group of students? Are they performing better than they would have performed in the past with this intervention or not as well? And we can track that for summer school. We just talked about that, I think, today, pulling a summer school report as we're planning for the future. Track interventions, or we can track by demographics. So we can look at our subgroups, and we can look by school, by grade, those kinds of things.
So it sounds like we're using this, like we're relying on this.
I think we try to use it as much as we can, and there's always new ways for us to use it, so I think the partnership's been, more robust in the last couple of years as we've had different needs, but, we're always kind of evaluating. It's a big expense, and we're always kind of evaluating whether or not this is something that we can move, to something that might cost us a little less, but still give us the same outcomes. We haven't done.
Who's the expert on that? Who's our contact? Or who kind of, is there like a,
You mean in our district?
yeah,
The administrative team. I mean, I would say,
Okay.
Tracy and Jackie and I have spent a lot of the time doing that work, but our principals are very involved and use those reports as well.
okay.
And certainly when it comes to teacher evaluation time, those reports get presented to our staff as well.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it.
Great. I had one. Sorry. So in your, on the summary page, and this was just more of just a general question. You have it, we have higher costs for, transportation for True North and special, additional education than were forecasted. Is there like a number you use every year, or how do you get that forecast number?
I try to project how many students we will have that we need to transport and what the cost of that transportation will be. And so.
Okay, so
as
it's
we
like
get-
the students from the prior year, like we anticipate this
Either-
year going back.
Well, I mean, at the beginning of the year, either existing students or new students, and sometimes existing students come back to the district if they're progressing. We can not
Okay.
send them out for services, or sometimes we have students in our district who are considering, we might not be able to meet all their needs in district, and we might need to get help and send them somewhere else for that. So I work closely with Tracy on that, and then also just, any new students. So the two of us talk about who we think at an individual level. And then sometimes if I can, pad that number a little bit to cover myself in case
Right.
kids move into the district that we don't expect. And so that's something you can't control, and that we're legally obligated to provide those services. So,
Right,
That
I
was
was
the
just
case.
like, I don't even know how you forecast that, other than like,
Yeah, just-
we'll add 3 to it or whatever.
it's
Okay.
really on an individual basis, knowing the progress that students are making who are existing, and then potential new students, and then just looking at history and just trying to guess. It's a low number of students, so
Okay,
it's something that is
Right.
variable.
thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for December 17, 2024, as presented by administration?
Second,
Lauren, can I have a call vote, please?
Richard Driver,
yes.
Laura Brigstone,
Yes.
Lauren Hirsch, yes, Tim Penich.
Yes.
Anne Hill,
Yes.
Carrie Steinbach.
Yes.
That motion passes. We do not have any FOIA requests this week. We do, have another opportunity for public comment. Anyone here want to make a public comment? All right, thank you. Then at 8:42 PM, may I have a motion to adjourn the December 17, 2024 regular Board of Education meeting? So
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Jay, would you be so kind